News! Board game news, tabletop news, a little everything in between. I love doing these videos. What do you need to know? What's new? What's out there? What's upcoming? What's making waves? Let's go. First up, foremost, Glass Cannon Unplugged. You remember them from the more recent Apex Legends miniatures skirmish game that was on crowdfunding earlier this year, but they just recently announced all over the place, boom, Diablo. Diablo, yeah, the video game. I keep telling people this, right? People, somehow still doubt that this is going to be a thing. But video games, tabletop, so much cash to be thrown around. So much nostalgia, so much, oh, I loved the idea of this video game. I loved the play of this video game. I bet it'll be the same. No, it won't. That's a blessing curse. But now we're seeing the tie-in because it's going to have an RPG component as well to it, but the two are going to be tied together? I don't know how I feel about that already, Glass Cannon Unplugged. And if you're unfamiliar with Diablo, right, you follow your hero, potentially with a little bit of pals going alongside. You're basically slaying your way through demons in hell. Basically upgrading your character, getting loot drops and rarities all over the place. More of an RPG feel, especially heavily loot organized in sort of the can I fit it in my storage still side of things, with epic enemies, tons of asymmetric abilities, and a little bit of everything else that goes along with it, as you would expect with leveling up and grinding for experience. Now, details are sparse, and so we don't even know if it's going to be randomly or procedurally generated in terms of the dungeons, but it's going to be potentially facing up to multiple opponents at a time. The RPG system is going to be somehow fast-paced combat with a unique rule set. Not necessarily based on, the typical D&D rule set of an RPG style that we've seen in the past. How much overlap is there going to be between the board game and the tabletop RPG game? That's going to be sort of the issue that I could see having there. And all we know is that it's going to be coming out sometime in 2024 at this point. So that's going to be the big question of, well, where does that leave us as a whole? The other big announcement, FFG just released in the last 2 weeks more information on the next big box or campaign box, scenario box, however you want to call it, for Marvel Champions. And that is Service to Fandom by the way of Age of Apocalypse. If you're not familiar with one of the most popular storylines in X-Men canon history, basically, it's what would happen if Xavier died and Magneto took over as the head of the X-Men, right? And Apocalypse basically takes over the whole planet, and you've got alternative versions of every character under the sun. It's where the ported over now Dark Beast, say, comes from. Never seen the one-handed old man Logan or the Cyclops with one eye. They're all from that. And so it is really a cool storyline. There's details out there. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are going to be there, as well as another villain named Unis that I'm actually not even completely familiar with. But the announced characters per leak on the back of the box, your setup characters there, not the extra ones that are going to go along with the rest of the cycle, but they're going to be Bishop and Magic, which again, really cool characters to be bringing over as a whole as well. I'm really excited to see what they're going to bring. And again, this is going to be sometime, I believe, in Q1 of 2024, March-ish. But speaking of March 2024, in case you weren't up to speed on things, Star Wars Unlimited has been announced to be releasing. You can actually go to select websites in North America right now, if you're there where I am, and pre-order either a 2-player starter set or a whole booster box for more money than you want to spend. Now, they say that this is the interesting part. The 2-player dueling starter deck is not going to be the same for everybody. There's going to be variability in those starter decks as a whole. Not sure really how I feel about the scheming of their rarities yet at this point on the retail side of things, but there's going to be a lot of content. And again, just like with Marvel Dice Throne, people are like, I don't really like the art. I freaking love the art. Going a completely unique, different direction, not taking crappy movie stills as a whole. Yeah, it's good. And hopefully, we'll get a little bit of outside of the normal canon. Let's get some Legends universe in there, folks. That'd be freaking amazing. I mean, there are channels and, you know, small websites all over the internet at this point, leaking cards one by one that FFG is slowly doling out like pieces of candy to Hansel and Gretel, if you will, at this time. So you can get plenty of content out there. People are printing and playing it even, mostly illegally at this point. And there's one or two websites you can go online and do the same thing with. So take that for what you will. People seem to like it. The reception, granted, highly selective bias there, if you're playing it at this point, is that it's pretty good and better than Lorcana. But I mean, again, I don't know if that's the highest or lowest bar to begin with there. So maybe not the best comparison if you're seriously interested in it, unless you're a Star Wars junkie like I am. Breaking news on this one earlier in the month. And this one strikes a little bit home because it's one of my favorite games. Level 99 announced that there is going to be a new upcoming crowdfunding campaign in a little over a week for Bullet. More Bullet content. 2 small box, I think, expansions. And so the controversial thing that went with it, I guess, you know, people were posting about it. And as a consumer, I guess I didn't think it was that controversial. So let's talk about it for a second and tell me if I'm wrong as I, you know, sound this out loud for you. But they decided and they announced, you know, on their website via their email subscription list that, hey, they're putting this out, but they're not doing any other marketing for it. And what I mean by that is not just like, okay, we're going to send the email out, right? And we're going to tell you, we're going to announce it on our website, we're going to announce it on our Discord, but they're not going to do other paid content out there. No previews, no ads, right? Those two are the big things. And they flat out said, hey, look, usually 25 to 30% of our budget for a game as a whole goes towards that. And that's a lot of money. And they said, you know what? We're going to give it to the artists that are doing the art with this game. And okay, now, again, I can't speak to those transactions actually occurring, so you take them in good faith with that, obviously. But at the same time, I love hearing that because you've heard me rant about how, you know, crowdfunding is filling up on a lot of pages now of preview content, paid content in that sense, which makes it harder for consumers to tell what you're actually getting. And you know what? Let's be honest. Some of those ads are obnoxious. I don't mind not seeing a game's ads on Board Game Geek or Facebook or Twitter or whatever other social media stuff. But Facebook does a ton of it in terms of those banners being changed, in terms of the ads that pop up in your feed. Just not having that stuff. You know what? Be frankly speaking, I don't really care. I don't think it's going to be missed. I don't. But somehow, yeah, people were talking about it in comment sections where it came up as it being like sort of like really controversial. So maybe I feel like I'm just maybe missing it. How is that a bad thing for consumers? Am I missing something here completely? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. And I guess maybe I am. Get that Zoolander reference, you know, all three of you in the comment section. But personally speaking, I love Bullet. But how do you think this is going to go? Is it going to be worthwhile? Should other companies take note of this? But this seems to be more artist-driven and consumer-driven. And so from both of those aspects, if that's true, especially with all the AI debate going on, right? AI is taking away art and jobs from people. I mean, you should be applauding this even more then, especially if you're one of those pitchfork people with the AI system. But I digress. Bottom line, very end of this rant. Am I going to get it on crowdfunding? What's going to be the incentive? They've done promo packs, foils in the past with some of their other ones. And so that's going to be the question. Will I get it eventually? Is it going to end up my collection? Absolutely. But show me what you got, 11.99 games. I'm all over it. Let's go slightly adjacent. Magic the Gathering. In case you missed the Lord of the Rings cooperation with Magic the Gathering and that whole, I don't want to say Charlie and the Chocolate Factory one ring card situation going on there, where they printed one ring card essentially as the master version, and they said, you know, that's all we're printing of this whole thing. And people were opening packs like Cookie Monster going after the cookie jar. But now we've got them porting over with others, because if some is good, more is even better, right? And just like with video games, once they see the cash, once Lego got IPs and, you know, other IPs saw that Lego was able to sell their IP successfully, oh, look, Magic the Gathering's doing the exact same. We have recently announced Magic the Gathering cooperation with Doctor Who as well as Jurassic Park. I mean, okay. I mean, Doctor Who, I'm a big Whovian, right? So I need to find or hope that Doctor Who comes up sometime soon on the streaming services so I can introduce my kids to that. and maybe get my wife actually interested in it, which failed the first time around, but that's a whole nother thing. But then let's go slightly differently here. Steamforged is actually cooperating with old Knizia game called Medici, and it's returning in 2024 with a new edition. Now they say it's going straight to retail. What's new? What's different? Well, better artwork, more updated artwork. We'll put it that way, because I know people like Vincent Dutrait's artwork who did the original one, but they're adding like tokens. That's what it seems like, giving it a fresh face. So I don't know anything about this one. 16th century travel and trade. Take that for what you will. Is this the one you've been waiting for? Well, no, unfortunately not, because unfortunately Tigris and Euphrates got delayed. That's the Knizia that everyone was waiting to get reprinted and in their collection at this point and not pay scalper secondary market prices. And it's gotten delayed to sometime in 2024 too, so we don't really know what that time frame is going to look like. Next up in the Undaunted series was also recently announced, and we're going into the future, the far future, 2022 Callisto future. And this is taking their hand management, deck building-esque war style into a standalone game with new science fiction setting. Play across a 2, 4, or even solo player mode style game with lunar landscaping, trying to seize the high ground, Anakin! And using mechs, though. Okay. How is it actually going to be different? I talked about Battle for Britain, and relatively solid game. The gameplay just didn't fully click with me, though. Something about it just, again. So I'm intrigued by these every single time, and I want to like them. And so this one, it's going to be on my radar. I can't say it's going to be a must-buy, though, either way. It's going to be a potentially must-try, but that's going to be sort of the question you have to ask yourself with these nowadays. How far away from it is it? Is it really just a different thematic incorporation? What's the new, edition going to give you in terms of gameplay mechanics? So we'll see. I'm sure people will have leaked information here in the near future. Speaking of re-implementations, though, of previous games, Axis and Allies. Well, if you want a new version of Axis and Allies, congratulations. You get basically G.I. Joe, the Axis and Allies version. Battle for Arctic Circle coming soon from Renegade Games Studios. 110 figures, so it's going to be plastic driven. New strategic options that commanders are going to give you, and even using a weather dominator to create or change the landscape as a whole. No idea what the market for something like this is. No idea if it's retail or crowdfunding. We'll just kind of see where it goes, because things I didn't expect for 100, Alex. And in case you didn't have enough of a heavy roll and write situation in your board gaming life on a daily basis already, FFG, and we're going back to them, already announced that there is going to be, can't even say this with a straight face, a 9 to 24 player variant for Twilight Inscription. Yes, Twilight Inscription, the heaviest roll and write on the market. That'll take you over 2 hours to play. Now you can play it with 23 of your closest friends all in one sitting under one roof. If that doesn't sound like a smashing good time, I don't know what does, especially for board game nerds all over the world. So go out there, find out what you can, and try it out yourself. On a slightly more user-friendly and more accessible side of things, King of Tokyo is coming back to its origin with King of Tokyo Origins, because they said King of Tokyo isn't streamlined enough, so let's make it a target version, essentially. And let's make it really easy, get rid of some of the board content, and just take the gameplay and make it everything that you have in the original one already. I mean, essentially, it sounds like they're trying to do the Horizons of Spirit Island thing and get it to more people. And so as much as I sort of tongue-in-cheek am not a huge fan of this, if it gets more people exposed to this, this was one of my gateway games post Catan. Like my first gateway game that I said, whoa, this is really fun. And then it got me everything else down the line. And so if you can have that more for people as a whole, and this is one of the easiest, most accessible games to play in terms of learning, because everyone knows Yahtzee or some version of that, right? And now you can just attack people with Yahtzee, right? Who doesn't love that? I love it. Anyway, you don't need to love it. I can love it, and you can love it too. Anyway, I'm done. Okay, what else we got on the horizon? Well, did you know that board gaming can improve cognitive function? Recent study shows that now if you have your parents, your grandparents, your geriatric folks that you know play board games, it will improve the cognitive decline that is suffered at an older age. Anything, and this study talks mainly about chess and Go, but just things that are going to preserve some of that cognitive function to help prevent more memory issues in the first place. And that's just kind of cool. And it's a cool note, it's a cool study, and it just reminds me that I am going to somehow one of these days get Go on my iPad or my iPhone and learn how to get absolutely destroyed by an AI or people around the world in the absolute #1 abstract game of all time. Yeah, I said what I said. Fight me in the comment section. 2 other new crowdfunding campaigns that are coming out in the near future. Conan from Monolith is coming back with everything and more. So this was one of my first heavier miniature games that I got, and I didn't like it whatsoever. I sold it, and for some reason it holds a lot of nostalgia in people's hearts. Again, Conan as an IP that people loved. I'll take things I never thought for 400 Alex, and that's sort of why I'm not surprised it's coming back. It did really gangbusters. It was really Monolith's first shoe in the door sort of crowdfunding expedition, if you will, I think. And so ever since then, they've, been trotting along. But even the latest of Mythic Battles Ragnarok, I'm still waiting for Ragnarok. We have to be over 2 years out for Ragnarok at this point. I don't even remember what it is at the time of me filming this. Supposedly it's on its way to us though right now. So I'm assuming they're going to wait until that one delivers and you're going to see more details. But I know the expansions were super hard to get on the secondary market and at retail after it because it just never was widely well supported when it initially went out. And I think nostalgia and fondness has grown over time, but I just never really got it to click. So again, thankfully I got rid of it and didn't lose a ton of money. The other one, Adventure Time, Card Wars. 10th anniversary. It's been out for 10 years already. Adventure Time. That's another kids cartoon for adults. If you're not familiar with it, it's, a lot of the humor goes over your head if you're a kid, but it's good from that aspect of things. So it's getting a 10th anniversary, I believe, from Cryptozoic, because a lot of it, or almost all of it, has been out of print. A lot of the expansions were next to impossible to find, and it offered just a little bit of everything, a lot of 2-player head-to-head sets, and then a little bit of extra content. And so Cryptozoic has been holding their cards close to the vest, not to let us know what time frame it's going to be coming out, but you'll be able to check that out. And then I'm assuming before the end of 2023 at this point, if they're announcing it on Facebook ads as well. So then the other thing we have coming back, but not as a crowdfunder, Cave Evil, their 13-year anniversary, now funding over on their official website, not crowdfunded, but, well, still going for trying to get it reprinted and to get people copies. But again, it's going to cost you triple digits to get this reprint. So if you want to pick up this game at this point with a reprint of the Darkest Necromancer trying to find the deepest, darkest pit where the location of all evil is found, while you use your resources to send forth and destroy, dig tunnels, or, knock out your fellow sorcerer from doing the same. Last one standing wins. Absolutely no clue what this is, how this entails. 13 years before my time in the hobby at this point. So, again, people are nostalgic for it, but my biggest question with something like this is, again, is it more going to hold up comparatively now that we've seen all the innovation that's come with this style of game in the first place? Not that it can't. I'm looking at my copy of Wiz War 8th edition that's sitting right over here, and that's fantastic. But 13th anniversary, we'll see, because it's also a pretty price point. And for something that nature, is it going to suit you now, or have your tastes actually changed? We're going over to Archon Studios. Archon Studios is taking the Masters of Orion IP, and they're bringing it back in a 4X style for 2 to 4 players, 6 unique races, as basically a spacefaring civ builder, if you will. Ever-changing objectives, 4X exploration, heavy strategy, drafting technology, exploring and expanding your civilization the best you can. How different than the other 4X and spacefaring games this is going to be? What other mechanics is it going to offer you? Details are very sparse at the time. And again, I'm assuming this is going to be sometime maybe Q1, Q2-ish of 2024 on crowdfunding. One last news of note, and we're going to go over to DireWolf Digital, because digital is going to bring us a little bit on that side of things, but also a little bit of the tabletop. We're getting an Invincible, the Amazon series, the cartoon animated version. We're getting a hero building game that's going to be coming out sometime in early 2024. But the real interesting tidbit there is they have a Wheel of Time tabletop game, and this is sort of where I'm a little bit trepidatious. I love Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time is one of my favorite IPs of all time. You know, I wish that Jordan would have been able to finish it in the first place. But Sanderson, he did a pretty adequate job, so I'm okay with it. It didn't end as well as I wanted it to. It got way too verbose in the second half of the series. But Rand al'Thor and just the whole concept behind it was fantastic. And the only thing that I worry about when DireWolf puts this on their page, right, is they say tabletop game, which worries me. It's going to be more skirmish. It worries me it's going to be more tabletop RPG, not actually like board game-esque. And I want something good. I have not seen many of these IPs used well. Haven't. And so we're going to see what that entails. And then also there's going to be, speaking of the RPGs, Tales of Xadia. The Dragon Prince is getting an RPG from them, and they're now digitizing several big name popular games, including Clank, Everdell, Little Everdell that is, Isle of Cats, Ark Nova, and Cascadia. So a whole digital lineup so that you don't even need to buy board games anymore, and you can just get them all in digital form because it's going to be easier to find people to play with that way than get friends to come over to your house. We'll do a little bit of hotness here at the end, and let's go right into it. Tiny Epic Games, because they also announced news recently. It's at the top of the hotness at the time of me filming this because it's going to be launching very shortly, I believe, is Tiny Epic Cthulhu. Well, about 3 years too late to ride the Cthulhu madness train, but this is going to ride the madness train nonetheless. And so what's essentially going on is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game where you're going to be, you know, basically Cthulhu Death May Die in a tiny box game where you're going to be utilizing madness to upgrade your abilities to basically navigate the Necronomicon. Anything more than that? No clue. You're going to be getting exclusives though, and the small box content is going to be worth it if you get the base pledge level with whatever mini expansion they're offering. However, I'm sure they'll deluxify it to double the price point if you want to do that as well. Kutnahora from Czech Games also is on the hotness. Well, because Dice Tower did the review, and I don't think they gave it as positive reviews as everyone else was giving it out of Essen. So that was kind of a surprise. You know, that was an issue, I guess. I don't know. It's probably too heavy for me. I'd love to try it out sometime. You know, it's on the trade list. And then we're also going into the Dune Imperium Uprising season. Pre-orders are being fulfilled from that one. There was the whole tournament with Mr. Beast winning it and donating the winnings. And so there's a lot of that going on as well. There's a lot of Dune fever. I feel like there's a song or a pun related to that right now that's just escaping me. But is it 2.0? It's backwards compatible with the expansions, which is kind of weird. But is it do you need both? I think it's more like a Great Western Trail or a Nemesis where one's going to be your flavor and the other one's not going to be your flavor, or it's just going to completely replace the other one in the first place. And so are you going to buy it and potentially have the other one be lost? How are you going to separate that stuff if you've already incorporated all of the expansions, right? Can you imagine that? You're a sleever and you've got it all incorporated and you have to sort it back out just to put all your expansion stuff back with a new game. Anyway, Voidfall is also on there because, no pun included, basically skewered that one as well. And you know what? I am not always a big fan of their reviews as a whole sometimes. But, you know, again, I've been saying that on the crowdfunding roundup that, you know, when I see these pages and pages and pages that just show you, you know, just scrolling after scrolling after scrolling of the tokens and cards and content, like, that's a turnoff as I'm trying to scroll down and see what the game is about in the first place. And I have trepidatious feelings about Voidfall sitting on my counter right now because I am scared to play a game that takes, you know, over half an hour just to set up. I don't know. I'm scared, but I'm going to do it, and it's going to be a great test of the market, and we'll see where that one goes. Speaking of other things that are getting some hotness and some clicks, Apiary, Stone Myers is still on there. I'm probably going to be having a copy of that in the near future to talk about that one, as a big fan of asymmetry, so we'll see where that goes. My review of Expeditions will also be coming out soon. And then going right back to Mind Clash as well, Septima, their witch-based Coven game with sort of a worker placement element, is also being delivered at the time of me filming this and this airing. And so that's on the hotness because it's being the clicks just from people buying, selling, and talking about it more as a whole. Apart from that, you really got your mainstays, your usual top whatevers, and then a few others just from the crowdfunding side of things, like Old King's Crown, which still has plenty of time left, Spiritfire as well, and then the recently launched Kalimala. I'm sure Undergrove from AEG will also be getting there soon. And then lastly, you still have your Arc Nova Marine World from that aspect, because that's getting delivered as well to people. And I think some of the pre-orders not from Capstone are also in the process of being delivered. So that's going to get a lot of clicks with a lot of selection bias as well for lovers of the base game in the first place. That's the hotness right now. Okay, that's it. That's all we got. That was the news for this week-ish, last month. Everything else in between. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Anything else I missed, shoot me an email, shoot me a comment down below, and we'll go from there. As always, have a great freaking fantastic day. Stay classy. See you around.